Hey everyone, it's Graham Coleman with Daily Xtra, and I'm talking to Peter Knegt, a film journalist who's in LA for the Oscars. So the Oscar ceremony just happened. What's your overall reaction?
I think that they were, more or less so-so in terms of the ceremony itself. I think Neil Patrick Harris is probably going to get a lot of criticism. Maybe not so much because of him. I mean, he seemed pretty game, but his jokes were kind of off, and I feel like the writing was generally kind of poor. But I mean, that said, the speeches I think were across the board pretty like inspired and emotional, and
Right.
Patricia Arquette and Julianne Moore and J.K. Simmons and Eddie Redmayne, who were the four acting winners. Despite the fact that we all thought they were going to win, gave some pretty heartfelt speeches and made for generally I think a pretty entertaining ceremony. Um, that said, there were really no surprises at all. Like I think that the whole ceremony was basically predicted by anybody that had any sort of clue. So in the end, those four winners who we all thought were going to win won. Birdman won Best Picture, which we all thought was going to happen, and it certainly to make for the particularly exciting ceremony.
So let's talk a bit more about the gayest thing at the Oscars, which was clearly Neil Patrick Harris.
Well, I mean, I'd argue that the gayest thing at the Oscars was Lady Gaga performing a song from The Sound of Music, but yeah, it was actually like kind of a gay Oscars. You think about Neil Patrick Harris in general, having sort of this pretty openly. He made definitely some tongue-in-cheek jokes throughout the whole thing, joking about the tension between Matt Damon and Ben Affleck, which I think was one of the highlights of his in terms of trying to be funny on
And
his
he
end.
stripped down to his underwear as well.
He stripped down to his underwear. Yeah, so he there was definitely some big gay elements to the Oscars.
So let's talk more about the acceptance speeches, which were pretty touching. Some of them focused on issues like suicide. What did you think about those?
Yeah, I mean, I think that for an Oscars that was heavily criticized for being about white straight dudes, and ultimately did end up celebrating white straight dudes with the Best Picture winner. There was a lot of really affecting speeches about various minority groups. The John Legend and Common, who won a Oscar for the song from Selma, gave a really passionate speech about sort of the state of racism in the world. Graham Moore, who won for The Imitation Game, gave a really passionate speech about um, suicide and being bullied. It was sort of could easily be tied to sort of a gay rights thing. Patricia Arquette gave like my favorite speech of the entire night was Patricia Arquette, who called out the right for women to have equal pay for equal work,
Yeah, that was
and
amazing.
yeah, I think that's and that moment that when Meryl Streep sort of rah-rah'd her afterwards, I think is definitely going to be the moment that most people replay from the ceremony.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So any other special moments that you want to talk about?
I really loved J.K. Simmons telling us to all call our parents. I really loved Julianne Moore's, sort of really passionate uh, speech about the two gay men who directed her film. They're a couple, and one of them has ALS. I thought that was just really affecting. I thought Eddie Redmayne was adorable in his speech. I mean, I really enjoyed them overall, despite finding them a little bit boring in terms of the predictability of the winners, and being a little bit disappointed by Mr. Harris.
At least there was a bit more diversity than we all thought there would be in terms of the speeches.
Yeah, I agree. And a couple female filmmakers won. Two women won for directing a documentary short, and a woman won for directing a documentary feature. So at least there's something that can sort of make up for that.
Yeah. So what's next for you? Are you going to any Oscars parties?
Tentatively, yeah, I'm sort of figuring that out right now. I actually at a hotel. I just went to sadly the Boyhood viewing party, which didn't really work out so well for them. So now we're just kind of trying to figure out what happens next because it's only 8 o'clock here.
We'll have a good time in LA, and thanks for speaking with us again.
No problem.